in Africa, in Nigeria, within men, there's a lot is more focused on the societal side, the social side,
Hmm.
what you represent in the society, your social standing, how you show up, the culture.
Yeah.
Um, and then less attention is paid to the emotional and the psychological side.
Yep.
So even the concept of man up, why are you crying like a woman? Why are you talking like a woman? All those genderized labeling, they get
Yeah.
in the way of this. So men are literally expected to just pack it in and not express. Whereas women have
Hello, everyone.
the
How are we doing? I have a confession to make. Growing up, the only time I came across mental health was when people were being committed to institutions. And so my knowledge of the concept was very limited. I didn't know that it was important to think about mental health the way you would think about your entire health as an individual. But this year, having recently been hearing of how important it is to take care of one's mental health, I suffered personally my own mental challenges, and it became a struggle to navigate through this. But I'm glad I am slowly coming out the other end. It is really important that we have conversations around the concept of mental health, especially amongst men and particularly in Nigerian and African societies in general. I cannot wait for you to meet my guest today as he's an expert on discussing mental issues, particularly amongst men. Stay tuned. I am Kay, and this is the K Touch. Today, I have the distinguished honor of talking with Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben is a multidisciplinary scientist. He's a behavioral therapist as well, and he has unique insights into human personalities, human communications. In short, I would say if you want to understand humans and the way they think and work, speak with Uncle Ben. And I am so glad to have him on my podcast today. Welcome, Uncle Ben. Thank you so much for coming.
thank you for having me. Really a pleasure.
Stop it. The pleasure is all mine. That you also have a unique insight into mental health, especially amongst men. So I'm going to be picking your brains today on that, on African men and their mental health. And then I'm also going to be asking you a few questions about yourself as well, because you have a lot of diverse interests that I really want to pick your brains on. But let's start the conversation with mental health. Please, can you help us understand the concept of mental health?
Think about it in a simple manner, which is that mental, like processing what's going on here, and
Hmm.
health, well-being. So when you bring in 3 points together of your emotional well-being, so being aware, knowing how your thoughts and your emotions are working, and what you're feeling, your psychological well-being, bring it together with your social awareness as well together. That's your mental health. So how is your feeling and emotions and your thinking interacting with your existence, your environment together? So that awareness is your mental health. So that's why things that affect your mental health will be either in your environment externally or internally
Hmm.
in terms of your own mental processing. So how you're making sense of your world, and your world will be internal and external
Hmm.
in a nutshell.
That's with such a rich definition of what it is. I wonder why it's only until recently that, well, I won't say recently, but within the past few years, it's become almost popular to discuss mental health. Um, why do you think now, just picking your brain, why do you think it wasn't or hasn't been such a popular topic in the past? We're talking 10, 20 years ago, but now has become so important.
It has always been important. It's just the awareness of it. So in the past, you only discussed what has to do with mental health only came up when something is compromised. In other words, when some sort of psychological issue has really, really gone out of control and gets into some other conditions, things like psychosis, schizophrenia, and things like that. So some psychiatric situations. And in such situations, people are in a serious condition and having serious interventions with psychiatrists and so on. So put it this way, in the past, it would only be when you're with psychologists or uh, psychiatrists that this is being dealt with. And it's not,
Mm,
it's more reactive rather than proactive. And many people would walk around with all sorts of mental health issues without realizing they had it because um, it wasn't common to know about. But with the advent of technology, evolution, social media, and things like that, there's more access to people sharing stories and then practitioners talking about it. So the awareness
mm,
has come up more, and scientific studies have also started to make a lot of connection between the wholeness of being. So you are not just a thinking entity. You're also a feeling entity. You're also a planning entity. You're also an expressing entity. There are different sides to you,
mm.
opposed to the whole slice and dice approach of a Western approach where the
Yeah.
doctor takes care of your physical health, the priest takes care of your spiritual health, the psychologist take care of your
Mhm.
psychological health, and the nutritionist, it's all sliced and diced. But that's not how you experience life. You're one person that experiences everything.
Yeah.
And recently, science has now come to the understanding that your thinking could make you sick,
Yeah.
right? The mind is not out there existing somewhere in space. The mind is really what the body does.
Mm.
So what you're thinking is directly creating chemical flow in your body, which then appears as
Yeah.
behavior or some physical state of
Yeah. A
being.
manifestation
So
of something that is mental, as it were. Yeah.
exactly. So you see, you did this not just as you were speaking, but I
Mm.
don't know if you were aware that your hand moved to touch your head. And even if you were, at what point did you say, now I'll move my hand? It happened so quickly. You thought it at the speed of thought. That
Mm.
thought of, I want to move my hand, that intention sent the signal straight up to your brain. And then your brain ignited the chemical reactions that needed to happen to contract all the muscles that need to contract and I move that to do that. So that physical movement is a direct response to a thought or an intention. So
Mm.
this is a clear manifestation of the holistic nature of the self. Now, with more and more awareness of it, people are beginning to realize that hang on a second, it's not just what I see is art; it's a lot of what I feel it as that's going on. So there's psychoimmunotherapy.
Oh,
It's all
the
about
friend has
that.
entered his zone now. No, 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 I'm listening.
Which is where you must have had situations, stories where somebody has a problem, a health problem. They are going to the doctor for this migraine or this issue that just never stops. I don't sleep well. I'm almost always sweating at a certain time. And then they do all sorts of checks and nothing. They can't see anything. And then the
Mm.
doctors go, nothing is wrong with you that we can see, and yet this
Mm.
person is experiencing what they're experiencing. Well, it's now been established that a lot of that is actually because is the whole psychosomatic interaction. So what's going on in your head, in your thoughts, and how it's showing up in your body.
Mm.
And I've seen in my practice many times when people will come into therapy with something else, maybe they're something as simple as I'm indecisive, I can't seem to make up my mind, or I seem to self-sabotage all the time, something that simple in quote. And we get into it, and then by session three, the person is saying, "Oh my God, I'm sleeping better," or they go, "Oh my God, I used to have this lower back pain, and it's just eased," or "My
Mm.
migraine has stopped." And it sounds magical or miraculous. And yet, think about it as you just unplugged, think about plumbing. and pipes, right? And one is blocked somewhere, causing the pressure not to flow properly on one end. Then when you
Hmm.
unblock it, it starts to flow better. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to get in too much because I don't know what else you want to ask that may
No, no, no.
elicit
It's quite
more
interesting. I mean,
explanation.
you said initially, and I hadn't even realized that that was a yeah, I have encountered the concept of mental health in the past. I'm Nigerian, and all we seem to have this running joke and running play of people who have lost their or have experienced some degradation in their mental faculty, and as a result have been committed to hospital or whatever. And that's the only thing I knew about it. It was only the extreme cases, and like you said, my knowledge has been restricted to just the reaction. So what has happened before, what has happened after, not even considering the issues that the individuals might have experienced before that time. In short, what you've just told me has given me an idea of the art that I'm making right now and what it is going to reflect on. But having said that, um, just to continue your train of thought, because I don't want to interrupt you too much, I want you to flow. Um, why is it important? Because now we're talking in the concept in within the confines of African men and Nigerian men. Why is mental health so important? Are there any observations you've seen amongst people of that continent that would infer that there needs to be more emphasis on mental health?
Yeah, so remember, I pointed out three tenets, emotional, psychological, and social.
Yep.
In Africa, in Nigeria, within men, there's a lot is more focused on the societal side, the social side,
Hmm.
what you represent in the society, your social standing, how you show up, the culture.
Yeah.
Um, and then less attention is paid to the emotional and the psychological side.
Yep.
So even the concept of man up, why are you crying like a woman? Why are you talking like a woman? All those genderized labeling, they get
Yeah.
in the way of this. So men are literally expected to just pack it in and not express. Whereas women have the permission, if you would, to cry,
Hmm.
to express that they are feeling pain, to appear helpless, or to acknowledge a feeling of helplessness. Men are not. Men are meant to figure it out. They are meant to get the solution. They are meant to move society forward by being right on it, regardless of what's going on inside of them.
Hmm.
Well, what that means is that remember what I said, that your mind is not out there. So while you're busy pushing away what you're feeling or how things are going on inside you, you're not resolving them, you're not expressing them, you're not feeling them. Well, you're blocking it.
Hmm.
Little wonder, on the other end of things, you find that women live longer than men,
Hmm.
and very, very common that men, you have more men having things like strokes than women, right? So,
Hmm.
or heart problems, heart attack. You have more men having that than women.
True.
And this is not just coincidental. When a lot of things are being kept in, let's just we'll call it what it is. You're stopping the natural flow of chemicals in the body.
Yeah.
Everything that we do in the body is really all about neurochemistry or biochemistry. It's
Hmm.
The body is like a big pharmaceutical
It
that's
is. Yep.
running up to 100,000 chemical reactions every minute. And for those chemical reactions to happen, your hormones or body chemicals at each point need to be at certain levels. And when there's a lot of stress, the stress hormones will dominate, and they are not meant to be in the body at beyond certain points. These are things that are designed to be there to help you survive a huge threat. Well,
Hmm.
life is not a huge threat all the time, and yet your body is constantly reacting as if that is the case, which
Hmm.
means part of the way the body survives is to poison itself. So that
Oh,
poisoning,
wait, 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 oh, wait, Uncle Ben. Wait, 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 rewind. Sorry, 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 sorry. Wait. Now that's an interesting one. Sorry, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you just said something really interesting. So by what are you trying to say that by the body not acknowledging or resolving issues, it could actually be working against itself?
Yeah. So the concept of homeostasis is everything is in balance.
Yep.
Now, when something disrupts the system, I mean, you understand this aspect of chemistry well. So if I talk about Le Chatelier's principle, you get it, right?
Equilibrium.
So
Yep.
yes, so some external constraint has come into this chemical system that is meant to be in equilibrium and
Yeah.
disrupted it. Now, this system has to accommodate that disruption such that it remains in equilibrium. And for it to do that, it has to steal from somewhere else. So, which is why when someone is stressed out, they can't really perform certain things. They can't focus on certain. They can't reason and so on because the body is trying to balance to keep you alive. So it has to steal from somewhere to do it. And before I whip out my favorite tool of discussion,
Yeah.
let me answer the question you were insinuating through what I said about the body poisoning itself. So imagine that a big, massive tiger is about to eat you. Your body will prioritize your survival immediately and it will do certain things. It will cut off reasoning, this part of the brain, the reasoning part, it will cut it out completely. It will even start to cut out from the limbic side, the emotional and memory processing side, so that you're not busy doing that calculation. It goes straight into the survival brain, the reptilian brain, the fight or flight one. And and in doing that, it needs to conserve energy. It's an energy
Yeah.
conserving system. So we'll cut out all those things that will take energy and put them in your extremities such that you can run or you can fight or freeze and stay like that for a while. Right. And this is why you would have heard cases of people doing very ambitious things in danger, like a woman whose child was caught under a car, lifting that car. Where did all that strength come? Or
Yeah.
people jumping from a three-story building and continue running because the house is on fire or something like that. So that surge of energy comes from what's going on in the body. Things like cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, glutamine, they'll just surge in different um,
Yeah.
setups. And when adrenaline is pumped, a lot of it, there's got to be movement. Okay, so in front of that tiger, you're getting all this stuff so that you can outrun the tiger if possible or
Hmm.
attack it. But just in case the tiger will overpower you, this surge of chemicals, which is not how it's meant to remain in the body if it's not being moved, start to poison the body. In other words, if the tiger was to bite you, you won't taste good, it will leave you. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is sort of the
That's a
survival mechanism
that's an
going on.
adaptive, yeah, kind of like an adaptive response to
Yes,
perceived danger. Wow.
yeah.
Okay. This is all new. This is all new information. Okay. I'm sorry, Uncle Ben. I'm just a bit it's really good to be able to see things from a different aspect or a different way. So thank you for opening this up. Now, do you have any comments on you because you've made a statement about um Nigerian men and how or an African men and how it is that we are being raised to be strong and problem solvers. Um, and how this invariably may lead to problems along the line, such as strokes and depression and all of that. How do you think we as a society may have gotten to a point? Because when you mentioned that issue about stroke, I'd never even thought that these are built up anxieties or the result of all these pressures manifesting themselves in that way. But how do you, I don't know if you've got any insight on how you think we got to that point where we would hear this kind of things, because I've heard about strokes in the past, and people I know having these problems. And my reaction to them, rather than feel empathy as to what might have led to this, I would take it as just one of those things. Because it's really worrying. Um, So yeah, it's just a reflection on that. Um, but let me now talk about let's look a bit about the stigma on mental health amongst African men and Nigerian men. What do you think about that generally? With how people are made fun of and how people are often ridiculed and described as feminine for having such issues.
Right. Again, if you think about it, in the past, only women would talk about how they feel,
Hmm,
and that talking about how you feel has been kind of tagged as girlish stuff, feminine stuff, and incorrectly so. Because while women appear to be resilient regardless of all the troubles they go through, and trust me, women go through all sorts of pressures and
hmm,
troubles, and you know, uh, apart from the traumas related to childbirth and all of that, the societal pressures as well, the change in landscape. So women are not just sat in one corner anymore. Women are
hmm,
getting actualized, and yet society hasn't moved on to accommodate the change that a
hmm.
woman can actually be a director, a CEO, and so on,
Yep.
and still need to be a mother. So how
Hmm,
can that be balanced so that she's not missing out in one or the other? So,
hmm,
but that's stuff for another time. So women are under immense pressure, but the fact that they can talk, the fact that they can express helps them to move that energy, and therefore they literally appear more resilient through these things than men. Men do
hmm.
cave in at some point and avoid they escape in habits and all sorts of things. So a man then owning up to saying, "Yeah, I feel stuck," sounds unmanly from the societal programming, because the job of a man is to unstick things rather than to feel stuck. That's where the
Hmm.
stigma is coming from, that if you are talking about your feelings, you're suddenly softening up. You're suddenly evading duty. And duty means do, 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 go, 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 go. Nobody has time to stop and feel.
Hmm.
But things have changed now, and we know that we do need to feel for us to be able to do. So but I'm glad
Hmm.
that many men are now realizing the importance of talking, the importance of acknowledging their own feelings, the fact that it's just not one of those things anymore. It's more serious than that. And
Hmm.
a lot of guys are coming up. In my practice, I have a lot of male clients. Um, what I find between men and women, though, is that my female clients tend to come more once they identify something is going on. The males tend to come when it's become a critical issue. It's a very,
Hmm.
very clear differentiation. And
Yeah.
when the men come, it's not very easy for them to just say, right, I think there's a problem. It's almost like they come with a mindset of, there's something I'm trying to fix, and I'm
Yeah.
not fixing it. Let's fix it together. And I'm okay with the let's fix it together part, but it's more about, this is not about a problem to fix. This is just about an experience, a situation to explore.
Yeah.
And in exploring that, you find your solutions and your nuggets. So men tend to think in that straight line of, okay, A plus B equals C,
Hmm.
you know. But then the equation is not that simple, right? The equation is probably an inequality, or one that has an integral that goes
Yeah.
between
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
some boundary conditions between zero and infinity and all of that. It's less
It's not as
simple.
simple as
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
quadratic function, you
Hmm.
know.
Can you please elaborate a bit on? So now I'm looking at a few things that may lead to poor mental health. And I was looking just before talking to you, I looked at a few behavioral practices. I know, for instance, there's work related stress that could contribute to it. There's even the impact of marriage on mental health. There's the impact of cultural practices on mental health. So there are quite a number of factors that could impact one's mental health. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on some of those and how they could cause the imbalance.
Yeah, a lot of all these things can cause mental health issues. Um, work is a big one. Work is not the way it used to be before, and a lot of men are really being taken unawares on this. So in the past, you needed to work hard to get where you're going, and it was step by step. It's not the same these days. These days, it's
No.
less about working hard and more about working smart.
Yep.
You could find people who are. I know someone who is a seasoned virologist, PhD level,
Hmm.
who walked out of his
Me.
work one day
Is
and
it me?
just
You?
decided to, follow his dreams and doing some other
Yep.
things, right?
Hmm.
Situations like that exist. And
Yep.
it, when one is expecting, someone was speaking to me the other day, and we figured out that this person was trying to succeed in work using a strategy he developed back in university. And times have changed, it's not working, but not many people know how to change that, switch strategy. So the stress increases.
Hmm.
um, if we talk about the fact that, again, in addition to work, there's the society. Everywhere you go, things are flashing at you. And when things are flashing, you see, this part of the brain that we share with animals, it's actually called the reptilian brain, and it's connected to your spinal cord and your senses, right? This part of the brain responds to movement and things very quick, easily. And when
Yep.
there's all these sharp movements, it's on hyper alert. So all those flashing stuff keeps you at hyper alert and making the brain think there's danger. It's not quite able to tune them off.
Oh,
And
wow.
you see things being flashed. There's a lot of red going on as well on the news. All of these things, they keep you in a perpetual state of fight or flight, and people wonder why there's so much anxiety. Everything is blown up. If you're watching the news, the same bad news is repeated over and over and over and over. How many times did you watch the news and you came out feeling excited? It rarely happens. Following the pandemic, a lot of people I know stopped watching the news, me myself inclusive. And I know how many people reported how better they felt for not
Hmm.
watching the news. Okay, so there's that sort of thing. Then go on social media, for instance, just information bombarding, and your brain is trying to process all of this. Mind you, that the brain can take in that much information, about 8,000 bits of information in 1 second. It can take it in, but it can only consciously process about 2,400 of that is taken in. Is it
So
8,000?
it's
No, it's
taking
8
in
million, I
so
think.
much, but it's not really working
Yeah.
on all that it's taking in. So a lot of it is just extra work it's doing.
Extra luggage. And when you sleep at night, your brain starts doing what you could call backup. So when stuff is being taken from conscious to unconscious into the, to memory, sort of putting stuff from the RAM to the ROM, from the read-only to the hard drive properly, right? It's sorting things through, and it's prioritizing them based on what you gave attention to, or what you gave even the slightest little more attention to. So if something has been repeated and repeated, it thinks it's important and it's trying to file it off. And a lot of these things could be things that are scary, things that put you in a perpetual fight or flight state. So you're not even relaxing. And many people don't know how to process out the day. They don't know how to kind of reset and really get a deep sleep. A lot of people are not sleeping properly. And then we come to the one that I would call a biggie, the marriage. You mentioned
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
When you marry somebody, your brain starts to wire together because you are, first of all, in the same environment. Scientifically, for homeostasis to be established in that environment, all of you are going to be vibrating at a certain similar resonant frequency chemically.
Hmm.
Okay, so you are affected by anyone in your immediate environment, period, whether you speak to them or not. But with marriage, it comes with a lot of things, both what your programmed expectations and definitions and meanings and fantasies of marriage. That's some data points. And then there's the reality of the person you're with. And in that pre-programmed stuff, there's a lot of it are not yours. They're from your parents and your society and so on and so on. Okay. For example, someone from our part of the world
Hmm.
um, unconsciously expects that his wife will be submissive to him, would unconsciously expect that it will be my wife's job to feed the family, to feed the children,
mm,
and
mm.
cook food. But then you might have lived in the UK that long, and you're all right with doing stuff at home. But a part of you isn't. But it's unaddressed. You don't know that. The same goes on with the woman. Then there's the expectation. Maybe she expects that she will be a baby girl, but the man is expecting that he will get someone, his mother, someone to look
Mm,
after him.
mm,
There's a clash. So the fact that these two worlds are not coming together nicely, or shall we say the third world is not being created properly, then
yeah.
means that there's chaos in the mind. Again, your brain is perceiving threats. Unresolved traumas that come into marriage don't help as well. So let's say someone grew up where their dad always shouted at their mom,
Mm,
and that used to make her scared. And then she marries a guy who has a big voice, or who suddenly started shouting or shouts at things. Now, when he shouts, maybe hasn't even shouted, has just raised his voice a bit. It triggers that wound in her, and she reacts as if it's her dad all over again.
yeah.
The same can happen with the guy as well, where the woman is doing something that he is reacting to as if it's his mom. So all of these things, when the home is not peaceful and calm and sane, it becomes difficult to function because your immediate environment where you should feel safe is no longer safe. And where there's no sense of safety, this part of the brain perceives threat. When it perceives threat, it creates what is called a stress response to that threat perception. And that stress response is flooding the body with all those stress chemicals, preparing you to escape and survive a huge tiger. Meanwhile, it's only your spouse. So the body gets too poisoned just by what could be rationally reasoned through. But not many
Mm,
people understand that you've spent years, because every child is born with these two parts of the brain intact,
mm,
right? Because they have the brainstem intact, they can turn to the direction of sound, they can breathe, they can have their heartbeats and all of those things, right? And then the limbic part helps them with the feelings. Okay, I know his mommy cuddling me. I'm feeling safe, and so on. That's why children learn more through does it feel safe, does it not feel safe?
mm,
So you've had a lot of time practicing that. Now, the neocortex, the thinking brain, develops all the way to maybe 32. So that's the reason why a child's head is smaller than that of an adult because it grows as this part of the brain gets bigger. So you've had years of practicing responding, reacting to stuff or responding not logically, but by instinct, primal instinct, as if you're an animal. Children up to a certain age, we really behave like animals because that's more what they're reacting to. And that does it feel good? Does it not feel good? Before it
mm,
gets to the logical part. Now, the real
yeah.
journey is where you start adding, bringing more logic into the situation. For example, not many people will think about it as, okay, here's a scenario. He comes home, she is sort of withdrawn because she's scared that he will start shouting.
Mm,
And because she's not welcoming him that way, he's triggered. Then he shouts. Then he scares her more. Then she shouts back. Then there's tension.
mm.
Then,
Does that constant feedback
yes,
in that respect?
he walks away or he walks away and then they don't talk the night. There's more tension. Now, not many people in this situation will think about that and say, hang on, a relationship is co-created. I am in this environment myself too. A bit like when you get into your car and you roll up the glass and then you fart. You're going to smell your fart. You are in
Mm,
the environment, you just farted it. So logically, what happens if I open the door and instead of that, when she does that, I say to her, come here, give me a hug,
mm,
just because I don't want that stress to happen.
mm,
Not many
mm.
people will think about that because when you start interrupting your patterns, you start having different experiences. But you need to bring the logical mind into that to say, this is how I feel when I walk through that door. I walk through that door and I feel, oh my God, trouble. And I feel, oh my God, trouble because this is what I think. Not many people can challenge that thought to say, what if I think differently? What if I come in with a different state? Now, this
Yeah.
is where you start to take control of things, and we can get into that a bit more. So, in a nutshell, when you're a man, an African man, the odds are already against you, and then you're married. the odds are getting even bigger. And
mm,
until you change something about how you process and make sense of your world, you're going to be in trouble with yourself. You're going that environment's not going to work for you. Unfortunately, men are not being raised as men anymore. In other words, men are not being raised to take responsibility for themselves. They keep thinking, I hear things like, she doesn't respect me. If you really have to get to this stage where you're saying she doesn't respect me, it means you're not respecting yourself. Or it means you see yourself as not respectable.
mm,
For it to get to that stage where you're asking for respect, man, you lost it, right? Because if you're self-leading, it is difficult to disrespect you. And meanwhile, what is respect? Respect is not obedience. Respect means regards for
mm.
you and your boundaries. And how can you get respect when you're not giving it? You can't give what you don't have. So if you're not respecting others, it's because you don't respect yourself, which means you can't receive respect when it comes. There's nothing to respect. And many men don't know this. Many men don't know how to stand like the flag and
Mm,
then let their woman stand like the pole and let their woman be the flag and fly around freely,
mm.
held steadily by the pole. They think their job is to control where she flies or how she flies. No, your job is to stay steady. And for a pole to be steady, it needs to go deeper into the ground. In other words, you need to go deeper into yourself and know yourself. And ask me about knowing yourself. I can explain that in a moment, but I feel like I've been talking for a minute.
No, oh, no, Uncle Ben, thanks. No, honestly, I think you've actually talked about the impact of work. You've talked about the impact of marriage. You have said something, however, that I'm not even sure if this time will permit us to talk about, but you've talked about men not being taught how to be men. I know that's another dimension of things that I would like to explore further with you. But let's just keep that in one aspect for now. Um, Tell me how what kind of steps, because like you said, society is already against you. It's like the Nigerian man is already set off for stress. How can he protect himself? What kind of strategies? And I know it's a bit much me asking you to summarize that in a short time, but what would you say are the steps he can take to ensure that he's in the right mental state?
One, know yourself. In fact, that's where everything is hinged upon. Know yourself. And by know yourself, when I talked about the pool going inside,
Hmm,
or like for for the Christians, the idea of when you want to pray, go inside.
hmm,
It's really about know yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your triggers? What are your propensities and tendencies? What are your fears? Know all of these things. And by knowing them, you're not trying to fix anything, you're not trying to judge anything. Know them so that you know when you're operating from those places. And the strategy is simple: play to your strength
hmm.
as much as you can, nurture your weaknesses so that they don't break you, and recognize your tendencies and your propensities. Recognize your fears so that you're not acting out of them.
Wait,
And
wait, wait, wait. Uncle Ben, I need to interrupt you there. I'm really sorry about this. When you say play to your strengths, can you give us an example of how to play to your strength? What that would entail?
okay, yes. So one of my core strengths is connecting with people quickly. You can connect with people quickly and easily and deeply, right? So coming to a strange place, then playing to my strength will be to simply find ways to connect with people. And finding ways to connect with people is learning what does connection mean in the place I am in right now.
Okay.
How do people connect here? So I learn it and I use it, knowing that once I'm in that direction, I'm authentic, I'm playing to my strength. Okay. If your strength is in organization, organizing things, when you get to a place, bring that aspect. Find dribble yourself into where you have to organize things.
Hmm,
So,
hmm,
lean more towards your strength away from your weakness. Don't put yourself in a place where you're weak because you're not going to be strong in it. But your weakness, you learn and work with. If you're put in a place where you're weak, you identify, oh, this is not my strong point. Now you don't try to bulldoze through. You attend it with a lot more patience, recruit more help if you would, and so on. Okay. And this then
Mm,
goes
mm,
towards knowing your triggers. Your triggers are things that will make you move away from your place of balance. And they can trigger a number of things. They can trigger a wide range of emotions. They can trigger um, fear, jealousy, pain, hurt, dissatisfaction, whatever. Know that. Then know your fear specifically. What are the things you're most afraid of? Because most of the time, right, we're always playing towards or away, towards something or away from something.
mm.
And it's easy to know what it's a motivation strategy. It's easy to know that when I talk to people, because I want to know what are you moving towards or what are you moving away from. And based on how people talk, you can hear it.
Hmm.
Now, be clear to yourself, what am I moving towards and why? What am I moving away from and why?
And why? Yeah.
Okay. And when you know these things, you then know how you're showing up in a conversation or in an interaction. And then literally by managing how you transverse through all of these, you can be managing your stress levels. So if you're in a place where, as a father, an African father in the UK, your role is entirely different to an African father in Nigeria. Okay. Now, but if it's someone who doesn't know how to be domestic, for example, and you've married a woman that is not having it, you're going to have to do these things.
Mm,
Maybe let's take an example of some people that maybe the Japan people, someone just Japan to the UK.
mm,
Your
mm,
wife is a doctor. She's the one that has brought everyone here, and she's working. She's busy. You are doing some other job, but then you've got all these things to do. First of all, your male ego is hit coming from Nigeria. You got to know that because if you don't know that, you may be behaving in a way towards your wife that would really hurt her feelings. But self-leadership there really means you understand that, oh, this is what she's doing now. How can I make her feel safe and supported within this? Because that's your job.
mm,
Okay. When you hit a man's confidence, you hit him hard. When you hit a woman's safety, you hit her hard. So, if you make your partner, your wife, feel safe emotionally, physically, and all of that, and protected, supported, you get the best out of her. And I say the same thing to women. If you make your husband feel confident and you don't knock his confidence, you get the best out of him. Okay. Now, in this sort of scenario that I described, the man may be busy knocking his own confidence in a way that causes her to knock the same confidence because now she's bringing the money and she doesn't see herself as the breadwinner she should and thinks she shouldn't be. And you're whinging about it. You're then picking at things, saying how she's not available. She's not even respecting you. You're now the one having to cook. And all of that is just worsening the dynamics. Meanwhile,
mm.
when you stand up to yourself properly and say, okay, she's doing this work. Well, I'll take over this bit because it's temporary. You're going to get something else going as well. And what you're saying to her is, I really appreciate that you're working hard. I really appreciate the contribution you're making here. Thank you for it. I'm grateful that you can stand in at the moment that you're earning more. And here's what I'm doing to make sure that you don't overwork yourself. So when you get back,
Mm,
don't worry about the food. I will arrange it. How will she look down on you? Because
mm.
you're still taking charge of things. You're trying to contribute. Okay, it's that flexibility to shift things. In
Yeah,
Nigeria, you may not be involved with childcare. In the UK, you will be.
yeah,
Well, be grateful for that opportunity to interact with your children a bit more,
yeah.
rather than calling it failure. Remember, I said know your meanings, know yourself is what is the meaning you give to things. So by
Mm.
moving around some of those meanings, you're putting yourself in a better, more functional state.
Yeah, so an adaptive strategy is important. You learning to 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 would I say change or yeah, the word is adapt to a
Reframe
new,
your
yeah,
meaning in
yeah.
circumstances. Yeah.
Okay.
Reframe your meaning in circumstances. That's one. Two, how you talk to yourself. So sometimes I say to people, right, for one day, just watch your thinking. Watch how you talk to yourself. You just watch it, notice it. Don't do anything else other than notice it. When you hear how you talk to yourself, for many people, it's a surprise. I do ask them, if someone else talks to you the way you talk to yourself, would you still be their friend? In many cases, it's no. So check how you talk to yourself and then start to change it. Start to
Is it
interrupt,
that they
start
are
to recognize
critics
those
of
voices.
themselves? Is it that we those voices are negative?
In many cases, yes, and they are not even your voice. They are the voices of your parents or some other adults in your life at certain points, right?
Hmm.
So know those things and know them very well. Okay. Then
Hmm.
there's the concept of, so I talked about how you talk to yourself. I talked about stepping up, being flexible and reframing things. There are also some physical sides to it. If you don't move your energy around as a man, you're disrupting things. I mean, if you, for people that have children, if you have a male child and a female child, you can see that the way they behave is totally different.
Yeah.
The boys really want to move around and jump around a lot more, much more than the girls. You've got more testosterone. You need to move that body, that energy. I think it's unhelpful for any man if he's not invested in his own physical fitness.
Okay.
And when you're engaging in physical fitness, physical exercise, and things like that, you actually grow your brain. You become smarter for a start. There's more blood flow to your organs as well, which means more oxygen gets around your body. And
Hmm.
and then, of course, we know the other health benefits of tissues breakdown and growing and all
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay.
By getting involved in physical activity as well, while you're doing that, the body releases endorphins, which will make you feel good, and the body heals itself as well. So in you really create a more sane mind through bodily movement. So that's another way to manage your stress. And then do something that makes you happy, something that makes you laugh. Go watch
Hmm.
some comedy. Ring up your old friends. Relationships help us a lot.
Hmm.
Stay in touch with friends. We live in a society where people are really separated. Connect with your old buddies. Talk with them. Talk with your family, your parents, and your siblings, and so on. Right? Keep a journal. Talk to yourself as well. Encourage yourself. And then there are some other things as well, like having a hot bath from time to time, soaking a bath. If
Hmm.
you can afford it, go for a spa treatment from time to time, or do some mindfulness, some meditation. Things that just connect you to the bigger universe as well, and non-physical
It's
stuff.
interesting you said that about the other activities that one could do, being active, things like um doing things that make you happy because culturally, I don't know many Nigerians that would include that um in their schedule of things to do. There won't be that intentional, as it were. So it's really interesting you've mentioned that as just being intentional to take care of yourself, making yourself active and involving
Well, it's
oneself.
important. It's important because when you do what you enjoy, your body releases a lot of dopamine
Hmm,
and serotonin,
hmm.
and these are good, feel good hormones. And when the body releases those, a signal is sent to your cells that is, it's time to grow, it's time to
Hmm,
thrive. It's not, there's
hmm.
no danger. Okay, so you're really making yourself healthier by doing things you like. But let's add a caveat: safe things, not
Okay.
dangerous things. That
Yeah,
takes me to
yeah.
one more point to mention here to men. You see, a lot of guys are killing themselves through their habits.
Okay.
Drinking, for example, many people
Yeah.
can just chuck it down. And you see, when you're a teenager, when you're a boy, all you want to do is to grow up and be an adult. Why? Because you think
To
when
do
you're an
adult
adult,
things.
you have freedom. So we're really chasing freedom. That's the high everyone is chasing. Now, when you become an adult, you're a teenager,
Hmm.
you have a little more freedom than as a child, but you don't have money. And other people are still making decisions for you, which is frustrating. So you keep looking forward to that point when no one will be deciding for you, right?
Yeah.
Then you become an adult in your 20s. You are way out of home. You've got more freedom, as it were, but you still don't have money. And you're not settled. Maybe you start working, and gradually, by the time people are in their 30s, you've got cash flow. Just a little more cash flow. You're settling down a bit more. Fine. Now you've got all the freedom you want. Between late 30s, that's when a lot of people start to have more cash flow. They're on their own and all. Maybe they've now started their own families. They're in charge. They then start to try to meet that
Live.
fantasy of freedom. So what are the things
Interesting.
I want to do as a free person? One of them is hang out as late as I want. And when they are doing that, they neglect the home. They get in trouble with their wives and so on.
Hmm.
The other is just drink. You see, do you know that there are more older people, men within 30s to early 50s, playing computer games, video games than teenagers?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so they do all of these things.
To try and catch
Get,
up with what they wanted
yes,
when they were younger.
yes, and get into very unhealthy habits. And then by the time, and when you're 40, between 38 to even 44, 45, if anything, you feel younger inside you,
Hmm.
right? You don't feel I'm getting older. So there's that. And then when midlife crisis hits, it's even more interesting. You just want to, I've got the cash, I've got to do things now before I get too old. But your body is already declining gradually, but you didn't know that. They chug it down and drink like teenagers. And then when they're in their late 50s, the body really goes, I'm tired. And in other words, the life you live in your 30s and 40s greatly determine how your 60s and 70s will be.
They're going to be.
Yeah. So while I say to people, do things that make you happy. Don't overindulge. Don't get into bad habits. They won't help
Hmm.
you. The
Hmm.
best gift you can give yourself really as a man is one, of course, knowing yourself, right? Let's put that
Hmm.
one. Let's not even call that a gift. It's not a negotiable condition.
Yep.
One
Yep.
is your physical fitness. Really prioritize your health, what you put inside your body. You can't put crap petrol in a car and expect it to perform well. It
Yep.
won't.
Yep. 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 That's
What you,
madness. You put the wrong kind of
yes.
fuel.
So what you put inside you will determine even your reasoning. And the second thing is, so I've talked about your health.
Hmm.
So important. What goes in there? That's one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself. And the second one is good sleep. Many people don't sleep well. They sleep so late and wake up early and eat food so late. The time the body will use to heal, it's using it to digest. And it's
To
digesting at
digest.
a time when certain body enzymes are not scheduled to operate. So the body is working harder to do all of that. Go and check how many people start poking out in their tummies and so on, right?
That's another issue for.
You know, and the joints start to give way and so on. So just give yourself, prioritize your health a little bit.
Hmm.
Once in a week, go on some intermittent fasting or even twice in a week. Allow your body to refresh itself and then give yourself some good sleep. Aim for 6 hours,
Hmm.
5 to 6 hours rather than 3 to 4 hours. If you
Hmm.
can get 8 hours, great. Rest from time to time where you just, I'm here. And connect to a higher purpose. Connect to a higher purpose.
Hmm.
These
Hmm.
things will help because then there's more expansion of your awareness and because there's a life to live and life is a gift to be enjoyed. Okay,
Yeah.
let me pause there. Don't know what else you want to ask.
No, 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 Ben. Honestly speaking, because that was basically um my aim to expand more on the impact of mental health, especially with Nigerian men. I know we've talked a lot about the society, the culture. I mean, even the practices in Nigeria as well, the expectations for men. It's things like, oh, we expect you to lift this amount of, have this amount of physical prowess to carry out this kind of tasks. Oh, we expect you to take A, B, C, D under your roof and take care of them as the man would take care of them. And you've actually gone into details to talk about how all of this impacts the body generally. So I'm quite satisfied. Now, however, I wanted to ask you about yourself. I
Hold
think
on,
this,
let me make two quick points on that before we move on.
okay,
One
yeah.
is one of the things that can make a man happy and live longer is
Hmm,
his marriage. Unfortunately, men tend to these days leave it for the women to fix the marriage.
hmm,
Wrong. It's your job to fix your marriage. If there's, and let's accept that not many people are taught how relational skills. We
hmm,
don't know how to ask for what we want or how to express our needs or how to validate another person's.
hmm,
Again, we can talk about this in another session, right? In more
hmm,
detail.
yeah.
But go and learn those relational skills. The reason you have issues in your relationship is because you don't know how to listen and your partner doesn't know how to listen. Those skills
Hmm,
are not there. Learn them. They are skills that can be learned. If your wife is happy, okay, Chiku, you're married, you know that a happy
hmm,
woman is a sane man's
yeah.
mind.
True.
And ways to make your wife happy are not complex. It's not a lot. She just needs to be safe. She just needs to feel supported. She just needs to feel seen and heard and desired
Hmm,
and loved and cherished.
hmm,
And if you don't know how to do those things, you're not really listening to her because she will tell you, just that many people don't hear it.
yeah.
So when you master the art of the word is maintaining your wife. See, in Igbo language, in Igbo culture back in the days, a woman
Hmm.
is called Oriak, and at a certain point is Odoziak. And
Ah,
the
please
meaning is
explain.
deep,
Please break down. Yes, yes.
right? Oriaku, literally by translation, is the consumer of wealth. But what it really signifies is a looked after woman.
Hmm,
Okay. And in Igbo, not cosmology, now philosophy, wealth and riches mean different things, right? But the wealth is
hmm,
the main thing, and it's called akonoba. Akonoba, the akoside is the wealth. The oba is the expansion of it. So when you have akonoba, then you're wealthy. And you can't have an akonoba without an oriaku. So when you have looking after a woman is part of being a man. It's your job as a man, guy, that your wife feels happy and safe. It's
hmm,
your job, not hers. Her job is not to make you happy. Her job is to, let's use the word complete you. It's her job is to, it's like that crown. It's like that you are ready to get into the next level of being, which is why
hmm.
now you're associated with
Another
the
person.
completion, the feminine energy, the masculine and feminine will be complete. Your divine expression is total. Now, but it's your job to cherish that, to look after that. Number two, when the woman becomes Odoziaku, Odoziaku is now the organizer of the wealth. This is next level where through looking after this special person in your life gets to be organized through her presence. So one of the key successes to a good life as a man is your wife. Marry right and make sure things work. Fix things. No, you don't bulldoze through marriage. No, you work through it. Okay. That's one point. The second point I wanted to make is in Nigeria, there's really very little social life. The social life is more in church,
Hmm.
and the
Or
church really
party.
is, or party, yes, which is still associated with all of that, right? So
Yeah,
what I mean is, it's only recent that all these hangouts started coming out where people can go and eat fish. But when you're going
true.
there to eat fish, there's loud music playing, as and you're
Hmm,
just there.
hmm.
But people don't have other socials like clubs, like community stuff, committees, all of those things don't exist. You won't find men that say, "Well, it's not." I mean, there are few, but it's not common. Say, bikers club, they come out and bring their bike and ride, or oh, we have a walking club, or football
Mm.
club, or reading club, or let men talk club, or whatever. You know, all different things. That's how you can socialize and connect. That is not work and is not
Yeah.
church. As a result of that, remember the social part is very important. So the connection that comes from social side is not quite existent. It is predicated on things you must do, i.e., defined for you. It has an impact. So a man's job as well includes just build healthy connections because then you'll be also modeling to your children what that is about. Okay, I'll
Hmm.
pause there and
No,
listen to
no,
your next
thanks,
question.
thanks. No, thanks, Ben. I think it's quite funny how it is that you've said a number of things, and it's easy to just take those things surface knowledge. I wish we had enough time to actually dissect and go into these elements because I believe that there's a lot that can be gotten from them. But I know going to get you on this podcast again to discuss that. But let me go into you now as a person. I I have known you now, which is interesting. I'm driving on my way home this afternoon, and I have known you actually for about 10 years, and I didn't even know that it was that long. We're in the same kind of friendship circle. But I haven't ever spoken with you at length, but I've just been observing you as a person from afar. And you have a number of interests. And I just want to look at some of those things. Then, the first thing is, what is with you and music? I can't breathe air or drink water and drop cup, as my people will say, without seeing a post on you singing, or you appreciating music, or you playing keyboard, or you I don't know. There's always something on music and yourself. Where did this marriage take place? How did it start?
It's for a very long time. This, I mean, this is you're going back to maybe as far back as me at 9 years old or
Hmm.
something like that. And it's quite a long thing. Music has been an integral part of my life, big integral part of my life. Right from singing in the choir to being in the band, playing different instruments, being the church organist, and then getting properly trained and becoming a performing artist.
Yeah, because you
And
actually perform. Yeah, I see you perform
yeah,
a couple of times. Yeah.
yeah, and all of that. Yes, I even my music has slowed down a little bit compared to what it used to be, but
Hmm.
then yeah, such is life. There was a time that I was full time. My full time job was music for about a couple of years. So yeah, that's how
What
much.
benefit do you get? I mean, personally, from music, because there must be something that keeps you coming back to it. It's not just the performance. There must be something about it.
I don't know how to explain it. It's just part of me. It's
Hmm.
you see, when I say play to your strengths, it's also one of those things. When are you your best self? When I'm performing with music, I really, it's like art. I can lose myself in that moment. I become the sound waves, if you
Hmm.
would, and I'm sharing something. Whenever I climb on stage, it's like I'm about to give a piece of me to people, basically. So, yeah, music refreshes me and connects me straight to the divine. It's a bit like making art. It's
Hmm.
like you're channeling something that you can't explain with words.
Yeah. It's interesting because with me, I think my where my natural self comes up is when I'm talking and creating. When I'm engaging with people, actually giving out a parts of myself and listening to people. I like the chemistry that comes from interaction. I think that is my drug. Feed into someone, the person feeds into you. It's like a dance. I like that. So I always sometimes it's like mentally I picture how an interaction with someone else will be, how we will just be dancing. So there's that. Then there's also just the concept of creating. And that brings me to my second thing about you. You are quite an observant person. And I don't know how you do it. It's like you look at someone and you start. putting connections together. Is it a natural thing for you, or is it something that you've learned over time?
Both. So one of the things that
I
I
know you're
realized
saying,
is that
okay, Chico has started today.
no, you always start anyway. One of the things I realized is that through I was talking to someone yesterday and I told them that your pain has your healing in it.
Hmm,
Okay, and every question comes with its answer right there. In other words, that thing that broke you also strengthened you. And in my case, as a child, I had to learn to be observant quickly as a way to stay out of trouble.
okay.
I had to learn how to be observant, and so that was the outcome of my own trauma,
Hmm,
and it has helped me. And my dad is an artist; he's still alive and very agile, and he used to he taught me a lot of art and
hmm,
things like modeling. Sit down there and observe and draw it, and all of that. So I also learned a lot of observation through him. But also to do the job I do, you have to learn what is called sensory acuity, picking up. Because when we talk, have you observed that people talk with their hands and all of that? What's going on when we are doing that? We are really
yeah.
sorting out data in space. And if you observe how someone is talking, you can tell where things are coming from and so on. You can connect with them better. And I love connecting with people. So
Hmm,
yeah, I tend to observe quite a lot when people speak to me. Um, Spoken
wow.
language can be very limited. Okay, I just noticed what I did. I did this three
Mm-hmm.
times. When I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
spoken language, I made this gesture three times. The question
Mm-hmm.
is why? I don't know. But this speaks more to me than just the words that came with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I learned to read people a lot, and it's also a hobby of mine. I remember I still do it. There was a time I used to do it a lot, where I would just go to the city center and just sit there to people watch. you know, just observing all sorts of details in what people are doing and how they're interacting. Or when it's at work, lunchtime, or I'll just take a break, just sit and just start observing. Yeah, it helps me just be aware of what's going on in the environment and relate better with
Wow.
people.
But you relate so well, and I think you're also very generous. You celebrate people, um, and I think it's really, and this is from my own personal interactions with you, and I stalk people on Facebook and all of that. So I know you celebrate people a lot, and it's really, I tell you honestly, it's one of your most generous qualities. But I was going to ask you also about, because Ben, you're a number of things. Where did the before we even come to Uncle Ben's kitchen, I know you also Uncle Ben's kitchen is my last part, but I also know at some point you did do martial arts. So can you tell me a bit about your interest in martial arts and how that started?
Martial arts for me started first with my dad. My dad
Hmm,
believed in people being able to defend themselves. He himself, he did martial arts. He was in the military. He
hmm.
did all sorts of things. So he taught me my first self-defense skills. And then I was bullied at some point, and I decided to rise against the bullies by
Bully, you
training.
bullied
Yes.
you. Hey!
Yeah. So yeah, and I went into martial arts, tried many, yeah, well, not many, but quite a number of
Hmm,
them. Taekwondo, karate that I did lots of,
yeah.
MMA, some Kali, some Krav Maga. I did a number of
Wow.
those.
Well, that's that. Yeah, yeah. Okay, now finally, I want the last part. I'm still going to ask you to give a last word to people, but um, Uncle Ben's Kitchen. Um, I'd heard of the legendary Uncle Ben's Kitchen, but it was only recently that I had the opportunity to experience Uncle Ben's Kitchen. Uncle Ben. First of all, I love your abacha. I taste, please, for those who don't understand, I had a recent taste of Uncle Ben's kitchen about a week ago during his birthday. Mwah. Uncle Ben, my questions for you with regards to your kitchen are twofold. Is there any food you cannot cook?
Of course, I can't cook all the foods in the world.
Wait,
Um,
but let's look at your interests. Is there anything you've attempted that you've not been able to do?
no, because if the recipe is there, I follow it and learn it, and then I customize it to the way I like it to be. And the thing about cooking is it's a bit like driving, right? When you can drive one car, you can drive literally all cars.
Yeah,
All you
yeah,
need
no,
to
I
do
don't
is
think that applies to me. But continue.
no, you walk out how the car works, and that's it. So with cooking, yeah, I invent my recipes a lot as well.
Hmm,
Um, come up with things. You know how things react with each other because cooking is a chemical reaction.
hmm,
And I look at cooking as a chemical reaction. I also look at it as art. So there was a time that my new passion was making art from food. So I would use fruits and make all sorts of arts, uh, for the fruit, the dessert, I use fruits and create like animals and things.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
people will say, oh, this is too good to be eaten. So yeah, I just learn and express. I learned cooking at home from my father and my mother. My
Hmm.
father cooked a lot as well. My mother did. Although I was an only son, they wouldn't let me enjoy the only son privileges back then, where only sons are spoiled. And then my sisters as well. My big sister made it a point to make sure that because she really went a bit bigger with her cooking. While she was in
Hmm,
university, she was running a little catering business on the side. So
hmm.
I learned a bit of that from her. And then I have an auntie that was also into catering, and I worked with her at some point, holiday, go make a little money. So I learned some stuff from her. So I learned baking from my sister and my auntie and started making beautiful cakes. So at some point, I used that to generate funds. I would cater for an event, make dishes and stuff. People come and carry or bake for them. I enjoy it. When I'm cooking, again, I'm in my element. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm about to share a special part of me with somebody. And yeah, I love catering. I love cooking. I love watching people eat what I've cooked.
Okay. Is there any Nigerian meal you don't like? I
I
have
don't
a
like
friend who
akam.
says she doesn't like rice and stew. She feels like it's the worst thing ever. She said she also doesn't like beans and rice mixed together.
Okay, she can speak for herself. I like those ones. I don't like akamu. I
Oh,
don't
stop! I
like.
beg, I beg, I beg, I beg, I beg. What don't you like about Akamu? Stop it! Stop it!
Well, the next thing I don't like will tell you I don't like okra soup. Anything that is drawy and slimy, I don't like.
Ah.
Yeah, but I cook it. My son likes okra soup. My wife loves it. I can cook it and I cook it from beginning to end. I won't taste it for salt. You know.
I love okra, so you're on your own, no, but I can understand the parts of it you don't like, but me, hey, oh, no, 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 no. Okay, so what would be your best soup? Still
My
on food.
best soup will be there are two on the top, Oha and Afang. Yeah, and no one makes Oha soup like my mother. My mother's Oha soup, you would taste the ogiri in it. You will also taste the oziza, and then the stockfish, background stockfish taste, and so on. There's a way she makes it. I just love it. Yeah, Oha soup and Afang will
Wow.
be the top, and then other things
Wow.
can start coming, like banga and salad,
Mm-hmm.
egusi, Kong, all of those will start coming.
Yeah. Wow. Like I said, I've tasted Uncle Ben's kitchen, so I know exactly that you're talented in that area. I don't want to compete with you. Finally, before you give a last word, I want to know because we've talked about mental health, we've talked about what men need to do to assess their mental health. Oh, yeah, here's a question. Do you recommend, is there a way? Now, I don't know if this is possible. I know, for instance, with health generally, we'll talk about medical checkups from time to time. Is there a way to assess one's mental health from time to time? Is there a way to do a kind of regular check? And what should people be looking for?
Very, very, very good question, actually, that is. Let's not shoehorn mental health into the same as like physical, medical stuff.
Hmm.
because your body is going to tell you all the time your state of mental health. I put it simply, if you're not feeling a deep sense of peace of mind inside you,
Hmm.
then something needs checking.
There's something wrong. Yeah.
And most of us, if you've got African parents or you grew up when we grew up, there is some trauma going on. These
Hmm.
traumas can be big T trauma, small T trauma. There's something going on there. If you have triggers, there's something going on there. It is not bad. It's just how your body is surviving. The question
Hmm.
is, as soon as you notice that you're really having to act, you don't feel like your real self, you're balancing things together a lot. Go and talk to somebody. And if I were to recommend to people, I would say to every man, just spend a little time with a therapist, just so you can at least unbox a few things that you didn't realize you've stored away. Think about that room that most people have in the village that is usually locked.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's a store or a dump where
Yep.
things are in, nobody opens it.
Hmm.
Everyone believes that if you open there may be snakes there or
Yep.
stuff.
Rats. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
But that room is still in the house and needs to be opened. So when I talk to clients in therapy, this is the metaphor I commonly give them, and I say to them, my job is I can't fix you. In the first place, I don't even see you as broken.
Hmm.
You're going to be the one to sort yourself out, but I'll be with you. So the journey is really like, let's open that room and turn on the light. And then initially we'll be like, what are we going to find? Then we open it, turn on the light, and like, this place stinks. Then you realize, oh, there's some, what do you call it, rat shit somewhere,
Hmm.
or some dead rat, or piece of paper that a rat has eaten, or
Yep.
decaying stuff. There's
Yep.
dust, there's cobwebs. You see all of those things, right? And now you know they're there. That's the awareness. And you can then start cleaning them out. But at the same time, in rooms like that, we find other things like, oh my God, is this where this thing is? You see some item that will remind you of some good memories. But
Hmm.
that stuff you also still need to throw away because you don't need it.
Yep.
At the same time, you find some treasures. Oh, I didn't know this was here. This is exactly what I've been looking
What you
for.
need. Yeah.
You can find things there. So that's what that looking inside journey can look like. And I will encourage every man, find an accountability partner, but most importantly, find a safe group or a therapist to work with.
Okay.
If you can afford one, well, there's something called bibliotherapy, which is therapy through books. Buy
Hmm.
books that can help you, and start to walk through these things. Um, Very important. Now, but you mentioned physical checkups, and I think every guy, at latest when you're 40, go and check your vitals. But you don't have to wait till 40 to check these things, because
Hmm.
we live in a society where we tend to be way too, the word is not empirical. Should I just say more, logical is not also the word I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about more of when I see it, I believe it type thing. So
Hmm.
the result of that, go check yourself and see what we've got technology that can tell you how your body is behaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I say to someone, cut down your drinking, they may think I'm just preaching. But if they
Hmm.
did a test that says, oh, your liver is getting a hit now, calm down,
Hmm.
it's easier to believe that. So
Yeah.
to avoid things sneaking up on you, because in your 40s, you may still think you've got it all together,
Hmm.
go and check yourself. There's nothing like that peace of mind to say, okay, yeah, all is well, or oh, okay, I need to watch my cholesterol, or I need to watch my sugar intake, or whatever that is, so that you've got a better reason to make better life choices. And if you have children, it's even more important. When I look at my children, I realize that my biggest desire and prayer is to be there for them until they don't really need me anymore. My
Hmm.
parents are still alive, and I'm very grateful for that. And I can see what difference would have made if they died in their
Hmm.
40s.
Hmm. Yeah. But I was thinking as well, now that you mentioned it, sorry, well, I thought this was going to end the
No, let's keep
conversation.
going.
But you said now about men and and assessing their mental health from time to time and their physical health. and talking to a therapist. I don't know how much access people have to that in Nigeria. I don't know because
Um,
what I know of is, again, it might just be because of the kind of chamber I was surrounded with, where all I knew for mental health was people being committed. I'm sure people like that exist in Nigeria, but I don't know of such. And then, just as an extension, are you someone who people can consult? Because if are you available for that kind of consultation? I hope it's not uncomfortable for me to put you on
no,
the
no, that's a
spot
great
there.
question. Yes. So, your second question was an answer to the first one.
Hmm.
Yes, there are people who are doing this now in Nigeria. There are a number of,
Okay.
if I mean, all you need to do, we live in a more connected world,
Hmm.
and people can just check online, check on Facebook, and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of my clients are actually in Nigeria, and we have sessions over Zoom.
Nice.
My website is www.calmmind.co.uk. Calm
Okay.
mind with one M. It's not calm and mind.
I'm going to leave
Calm,
the link on my on
yeah,
my on my description.
CALMIND.co.uk. And there's a contact from there so that people can use to get in touch. And I
Hmm.
know that therapy is not cheap.
Hmm.
However, making an initial connection is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And there are some other programs I'm going to be running next week, things like group therapy. I started that this year and it works well. It's not one to one, but then
Yeah.
it's better than nothing because as in
Nothing.
a
Yeah.
group setting as well, people can get some support. So there is that. There's also lots of help people can get on YouTube if they want.
Hmm.
People are putting out content that can help in managing common situations people deal with.
Yeah.
So there are different places people can start.
Okay. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's going to be very useful to a lot of people, because it's good when you know that there's a place to actually start from. So thank you for sharing that. Now, finally, before we see your art, two things. How do you personally, Uncle Ben, how do you relax? How do you, when you are not um, counseling people, when you're not giving TED Talks, when you're not at conferences, when you are not here on my podcast, how do you relax?
Okay. Well, number one, I play with my children. Number two, so playing with my children, we literally run around, we tell jokes, we dance, we do all sorts. Um, I play music, I play piano,
Hmm,
or I sing, and my daughter will be playing while I'm singing or something like that. So music relaxes me.
hmm.
Cooking relaxes me actually.
Cooking relaxes me. For some people, it causes stress.
Yeah, well, wait for the next thing that relaxes me. Please forgive me, guys, because for some people, for many people, they'll go, what? That's why I don't say it much.
Hmm.
Cleaning actually relaxes me.
No,
Yeah.
no.
In
Wow.
fact, when I'm very, very out of sorts, I just start cleaning. And I get the psychology of it, right? When you arrange things, you're actually arranging your mind. So I have had clients who, what the first intervention I give them is to say, go and arrange your room and
Hmm.
tell me how you feel after. Okay. So yeah, but then in addition to all of those things, something I do a lot of mindfulness as a way to bring back my safety. And we can do something very quickly if you want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah.
do two things with you that I do a lot. So one is a body scan. So where you are now, follow my words, and you
Yeah.
will notice that as soon as I say it, you go there. For example, right now, can you feel your feet on the floor where they are? Just
Hmm.
feel the weight of your feet on the floor. Feel your bum on the seat you're sitting on. Feel your back. Feel your tummy, and if it's tense, just relax it. Bring attention to your shoulders. If they are tense, just relax. Relax. Bring attention to your neck, to your jaw. If it's tight, relax. Bring attention to your forehead, the top of your head. That's how you're feeling now. What did you notice?
Very calm.
Yeah. So this is a body scan. I do this a lot. because when many times when things are going on, we're out of our body into our head, and that's where the stress starts. When you come back into your body, you're relaxing things because your body tenses up as things happen. So I do that a lot. When I want to sleep and I lie down there, I literally start scanning my body and feeling the bed take my weight and all of that. And before you know, you drift off. The second one I do, which I would like us to do together as well, is breathing. You see, breath is the only thing that keeps you alive, that keeps this body powered. And
Mm,
your breath is not from you, it's sort of external. It's the same breath everything is sharing. It's the
mm.
connection between plants and animals and everything, right? You breathe out the oxygen that the plants release. You breathe out the carbon dioxide that and the
Plants
plants use that
breathing
to
and
release
release
oxygen,
oxygen.
and
Mm,
so on. So we're sharing that the breath is your divine part, basically. And when
mm,
the breath leaves the body is dead. So anytime you breathe, you're connecting with life as life is.
mm.
Is the real secret there. So some conscious mindful breathing means I know I'm breathing. Just that. But there's one I learned from a Buddhist monk, which helps a lot. And this helps me in stressful times. I call it calm and ease. And so calm is something you're thinking, ease is something you're
Yeah.
thinking. So let's do 5 calm and ease breaths. So when you breathe in, you think in your head calm. When you breathe out, you think in your head ease.
Mm.
Calm, ease. Calm, ease. Calm, ease. One more. Calm, ease. What did you notice?
I had my breath. I had my breathing out. Um, yeah, that was the main thing I noticed. That I
What
heard
was going on in your mind at the time you were doing this?
nothing. I
Nothing
wasn't
exactly.
thinking about anything.
Exactly. That's what I wanted you to notice. So all those thoughts, suddenly they're quiet.
Interesting. Okay, okay.
Yeah. And that launches me in creativity. So if there's something that I'm worrying about, something that's disturbing, put it in front of you in your mind, hold it in front of you, and then just breathe calm and ease through it. Suddenly all that worry dissolves and you can have clarity. Because when you're doing this, you're slowing down the brainwave. And when the brainwave slows down from the beta brainwave into an alpha, you get into creative thinking. When it slows down further into theta, you get into a meditative state, which is also a very deeply creative state. If it slows down further into delta, you're going to sleep. Okay, and a deep sleep state. So how would you like to be able to get into that creative, calm, relaxed state of mind, even in the face of trouble? This is something that military people are taught, so that even in the heat of war, they can make quick,
Hmm.
intuitive, and accurate decisions. Okay, and I teach CEOs this sort of thing as well. How do you stay calm in the face of turmoil? It's by managing your own internal state, and this is one of the ways I do it with myself.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. I'm not okay, amazing. You just keep giving me an opportunity to go into one thing or the other. So I'll just ask one more thing before I tell you to show me your art. Ben, you've done a lot. And I know in your sojourn in this life, there are things that you've set out to achieve and you've achieved. Is there any particular thing you want to share with us that you have achieved that you are proud of? Now, I won't say your greatest achievement. I won't even say your best achievement or anything, but is there any achievement that you've had that you want to share with us? That when you think of, you smile.
I'm not such a fan of the whole sharing achievements stuff,
Hmm,
um, because it's not about showing off what I've achieved or what I haven't achieved.
hmm,
But if you allow me to rephrase that in a bit to say sharing a moment that I was particularly
Proud
um,
of, happy about. Yeah.
excited by, yeah, and that would be the birth of my son. It was a very, very intense journey. The pregnancy was horrible, and my
Mm,
wife's life was at stake. The boy's life was at stake. It was
mm,
all really tough. But in that time, mental resilience was my just came up. I learned mental resilience through that. And when he was eventually born, it was like, oh my goodness. How I showed up through that journey, I felt, I say to people that I grew a lot through that time. So it's one thing that whenever I look back at, I'm like, wow, I actually went through this. My wife at some point was completely bedridden and
mm,
couldn't do much. And yet, it all was okay in the end. And I played
mm.
it, all sorts of parts that I am very proud of. You know, it was my moment of really embodying support as a thing, and no, not just a concept, but as part of me. And I learned so much
Mm.
as well through that. And yeah, as soon as you asked that question, that was what came straight to me. But then in my head, having a son is not really an achievement. I didn't
No,
achieve
well,
having a son. Do you understand what I mean? I didn't
mm,
achieve having a son. I just got a
yeah, yeah,
gift. But
yeah.
then what is it that I'm proud of or
Yeah,
super excited about in the whole journey and process? It is this bit of what I've said to you.
yeah.
If I was to add another thing, anytime I connect with men, it's just a special moment for me because I
Mm,
find out that men are really deeply gagging to connect and to be heard without being judged.
yeah.
And so anytime I have any of those interactions, it's just a high for me.
Allow me to share mine because you just when you went that way, I couldn't help but reflect on what has given me such peace, a moment of peace this year was when I realized truly how people would use the word blessed, but I want to say how wealthy I am. Because I realized that for a moment of during a moment of reflection that one of my greatest sources of wealth are the people I know.
Hmm.
And I can't believe it's taken me this long to appreciate them because I know in this life we interact with people left, right, and center, but my interactions always leave me with something. I don't set out, for instance, I didn't set out to talk with you so that I could get something from you. But I can't help but feel richer after my interaction with you. And it's that realization, once it dawned on me, I felt happy. It's like a form of support that I've always had, but never realized that I had.
Hmm.
And before I physically live this life and its existence, I am so glad that I attained that realization
Hmm.
because I can't imagine how much regret I would have felt if I was lying on my bed and it finally hit me. Okechukwu, you knew Ben, but never spoke with Ben in this direction or in this dimension. You never actually, forgive the word, this is the only way to describe it. You never actually harvested what Ben had to offer because I couldn't see him beyond Facebook. It's just like Jesus, forgive my use of that scripture, but that's all I know. When Jesus would be preaching and they say, is this not the carpenter's son?
Hmm.
But I've known you in a dimension that even before speaking with you now, I'm already thinking, I'd love to have Ben to talk about this. I'd love to have Ben to talk about this. So that for me is something I realized this year, how wealthy I am because of the people that I know.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
it's just. You see, wealth, I described the Igbo philosophy of wealth, right?
Mm.
There's another compound, and I think it's probably, okay, there are three that I remember, I know, and I don't know if there's more, but it's probably only these three that are really compound descriptions of bigger concepts in Igbo land. One is Akonoba, which is wealth. The
Mm.
other one is Ezinolo, which is family. Ezi,
Yeah,
outside,
yeah,
Olo.
yeah,
So
yeah,
outside
yeah,
and inside influence.
yeah.
And the other one is Akonuche, which is wisdom. Ako is like smartness.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Uche
mm-hmm.
is like introspection and intuition.
Yeah,
So these three together kind of go, it's like your relationships and family will become your wealth if you enhance them through wisdom.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that is
I
mental
agree.
health.
That's a nice way of tying it in. I see what you did there. Okay, no, Ben, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. Can you please round up this session before you show us your art? Share something to round up this session, basically, for the audience.
So everyone watching, if you've watched up to this stage, you rock. I appreciate you greatly because it's been a little while we've spent talking. But if you have stayed up to this point, then this message is not random for you.
Yeah.
First of all, well done. And secondly, I believe in you. I'm rooting for you. And I don't know what your story is. What I know is that you're in it to win it. All you need to do is just trust yourself a little bit more. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Check how you talk to yourself, and if it's not kind, change it. You've got the power, you can do it. Be kinder and nicer to yourself. Be your own encourager. Just tell yourself it's okay. It feels hard, but we'll get there.
Mm.
And yeah, keep going, keep going. You matter. You are important. Without you, life is not going to be the same ever. Life will continue, but it will be a different life.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you matter, you are important, and I'm rooting for you. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Thank you so much. People, I don't. Wow, this is the kind of thing Ben would say. I want to give Ben a hug because that was very, very thoughtful. I really appreciate it, Ben, honestly. And having you here has been amazing. Now we come to the point where a lot of my guests struggle with, which is to show their art. Ben, please, do you have something for us that you like to?
I don't know if you can see it properly.
I can see it. I can see it. You have drawn. You have drawn a village, Ben.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And do you know the interesting thing? Now that I see this, you know what comes to my mind? There was this picture you shared many years ago with you and your wife when you were cutting. You have
Mm-hmm.
this village setting. It's in my head.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
tell me about your image. Tell me about it.
I was just trying as I was talking, but
Mm,
this is the whole. If you notice, there are some people there in pairs
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I was talking about houses and navigating yourself, and it's like the interactions there, the relationships and that thing that the village gave us in the past, right? Is something that is at heart. And the village I've
Mm,
drawn is, of course, an African village,
yeah.
which is where my heart is. So if I were to interpret this really, it's more like the connections is what really makes us.
Wow. Uncle Ben, you are drawing now. This is what upsets me. Not upsets me, confuses me with the guests I have on my show. They will say they can't make art. Then they make art. It's like a, for me, it's a disconnect. You made very wonderful art. Please,
I
can
didn't
you
say I can't
scan?
make art, but I just said I wasn't ready to make art. But yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. That is amazing. Please, you will scan that too, because that is already the art that I'm going to put on my website. I have a website, the K Touch. If you go there, you will see a lot of art. I'm just showcasing the talent of the people that are coming on my show. Now, the way you have shown that art, let me show you my own. So when you were talking, I put this up. I hope you'll be able to see it. So Now, this is my art. From the get-go, you started with something that just touched me. I mean, I came here thinking we're only going to talk about
Mm,
mental states. But you've been able to, in a short conversation, say the entire man is social, mental, emotional, spiritual, and that is what leads to balance. And that was what
mm,
caught my attention. The fact that all of these things actually connect with each other. And really, if one should wants to get to the heart of things, you have to be able to look at them as a whole rather than dissecting them individually. So
yes.
that's what I've learned in this interaction.
Mm, yes. So this is the thing. These houses can't
Yeah.
exist without each other. Okay, they're all connected. That's why it's a village or a family or whatever, right?
Wow. Uncle Ben, honestly, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Right. Uncle Ben and I are going to talk after this. It's your lost people for not knowing him. If you want to connect with him, I'm going to leave his links and you can reach out. Honestly, see him. I'm not saying it's cheap, it's not free, but honestly, just have a chat with Uncle Ben. I tell you, you would end up living better than you got in. Thank you so much, Uncle Ben, for showing up. I
Thank you.
really appreciate you, and I can't wait to have you on this show again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see later on. I'm just going to catch up with my brother here. See you next week.
All right,
Bye.